Bonjour, and welcome to the How I Raised It podcast, the show where you get an inside look at how real entrepreneurs raise capital for their businesses. I'm your host, Nathan Beckert, and today's episode is with Max Aniort of Le Collectionist, a collection of 2,000 amazing properties, mostly in Europe, that you can rent, such as a French chateau or a villa in the Greek islands. It's amazing, beautiful stuff. Le Collectionist has acquired 6 other companies, so we talk about building an M&A playbook. We also cover the French startup scene, raising multiple rounds of capital, and much more. If you're tuning into this podcast to learn how to raise capital for your business, I've created a super valuable free welcome package for you. It includes a list of 2,500 investors who don't require a warm intro, plus 200 questions that investors are going to ask you. So it's really going to help you get ready to raise money. To get instant access to this, please click the link in the first comment. While you're there, please leave us a nice comment, what you like about this episode or this series in general. Last but not least, if you enjoy this conversation and think someone else would too, please share it with them and hit that subscribe button to get all our latest episodes. Thank you. Now sit back and enjoy this chat with Max.
Welcome to How I Raised It, the podcast that goes behind the scenes with entrepreneurs who've raised capital. We uncover the tips, tricks, and techniques they use to get investors to write a check. Strap in and turn it up.
Hi, welcome to another episode of How I Raised It, produced by Foundersuite.com. Today I have Max Aniort of Le Collectionist coming to us from Paris.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show. Well, let's jump right into what you guys do. What is Le Collectionist?
So, Le Collectionist is a brand. We rent luxury properties with concierge services. So you can, we have a portfolio of like 2,000 properties, and especially in Europe, in 30 destinations, but also a bit more far away, like Caribbean islands, Sabat, Turks and Caicos, South Africa with Cape Town, Costa Rica, and Morocco, for instance. And so you can book a property. The average stay is 30K, so it's pretty high end. Our biggest booking this year was 3 million euros for 3 months in Verbier. So a ski destination in the Swiss Alps. And yes, so it's really focused on doing our job properly. Today we are like the leader in Europe in 30 destinations, and we grow organically, but also with M&A. We acquired 6 companies since we created the Le Collectionist 8 years ago, and 4 last year.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to come back to that in a minute. Where did this idea come from? What were you doing before? How did you come up with this? Yeah.
Okay, 4 questions in one question. So, my former business partner like booked a luxury apartment in Barcelona on a very famous platform, and when he arrived, like it was quite not a good surprise. And the apartment was not like super clean. There was no service, no AC, and he was like, "Oh, I had no other idea to book a property if I wanted to focus on the high segment one." And that's the first thing. To be honest, that's kind of the storytelling part of the of LC. But at the end, I really think that it was more driven by a business intuition. So of course it was like the boom of Airbnb, and the intuition was like that owners of luxury properties won't list their properties on this platform because they wanted to have like a dedicated platform or brand. And that's how we started Le Collectionist. So it was more like a market intuition, and that we validated at first with proof of concept, with just working on 2 destinations, Saint-Tropez and Deauville in France. And after, little by little, we opened new destinations, we changed our business model like any other company story. But I think at the end it was more, okay, there's something happening in the market and we should focus on a very small segment of it, being the luxury segment.
And so that's interesting. So I guess another 2-part question or multiple part question, but why would a luxury chateau owner not want to list on Airbnb? Like, what's the biggest drawback there? And I guess from the other side, why wouldn't Airbnb have their Airbnb Platinum, maybe a separate thing? Yeah.
So on the owner part, so Airbnb, for instance, Airbnb, because they're like other platforms in the industry. But so this kind of platform, they did a great job to build tools for me, for instance, to be able to rent your apartment or property somewhere across the globe. And so we don't need anyone to be in the middle to make the rental part. We just like discuss, there's a tool, there's some security around it, there are like feedbacks, ratings. So this works. While at the opposite, it means that we are an intermediary between the owner and the guest. And the owner doesn't want to talk to the guest, to organize the holidays, to do nothing. So that's, I think, the first part. And for the guest also, we organize everything from, even if you want, like leaving your apartment wherever you live, New York, London, Paris, until you come back home. And so all the logistic, car rental, you get teacher, babysitters, property, grocery shopping, we can do everything. And this is also something that Airbnb doesn't do. So just like we're doing the same job, but I think on different segments, and so bringing different values to our customers because they're looking for different things. So that works.
Got it. Interesting. It seems like it would be harder to convince someone to list, especially maybe in your early days when you launch this, get someone to list their, $12 million chateau than it is to get someone to rent out their second apartment on Airbnb, right? I mean, was it hard to recruit properties and build a marketplace? Because if you don't have properties, how do you attract users?
Yeah.
Like the whole chicken and egg would be a challenge. How'd you overcome that?
No, that's very real. And so the first summer we partner up with someone that was already working in the rental industry in Saint-Tropez in the south of France, and that's the way we got our first 30 properties. So, but yeah, at that time it was so weird, like three business partners in our 20s. And yeah, those properties like cost millions, and I guess it was it's more like the word of mouth that worked really well after a few seasons, but the first one, yeah, were harder to get.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you screen the renters? So you've heard horror stories on, adult film, people going and renting places. Like, how do you screen and filter the renters? Can I just go on and rent
Yeah,
anything, or what?
yeah. At the end, it's not. Well, it's pretty. So on our side, what we ask our guests is like, what's the composition of the group? We have like 80% of families with kids. So this is our like core business being really based on that. But after it's okay also to come for a party. The only thing is really, so we take a significant security deposit. So I think it's the best way to force the discussion, to tell them like, just be honest, because we do have like party properties. We do operate in Ibiza, not, of course, not the whole portfolio of Ibiza is party places, but some of them are. We do know them. The owner also does party in his property, so works for everyone. But we just have to know, because there on the other side are other properties with like artwork or very fragile items, and it would be like really stupid to do like an amazing party over there, because at the end it's going to be super painful for you, for us, for the owner. So I think it's just like to explain the situation and to tell them you don't have to lie, because we can really match you whatever the plan, but you just have to be honest with us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you also screen for, I don't know, do you require me to submit my W-2 paycheck or bank account? I mean, do you screen for net wealth or anything like that? Make sure I can actually afford these properties?
But at the end, you have to pay for them like really in advance. So you pay like 50% when you sign the contract, and you pay 50% 1 month in advance. If you don't pay, then the contract is off. So it's really easy. We don't have to do a due diligence on every player. It's more, to be honest, it's more a question of, for instance, with the Russian war, to be really careful with, respecting the law and not to have owners or guests that could be on a blacklist anywhere. So not only from Russia, it can be any dictator or any, I don't know, person that, or persona non grata from a more international law point of view. And for that, every day, when we have a doubt, we work with intelligence companies that just do a background check on a guest, but well, it doesn't happen. It's very rare, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Have you had to kick? I have to ask now. Have you had to kick out any Russians on the blacklist from the property?
From the property portfolio, I guess yes, maybe one or two.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm.
My only exposure to that, I went to Bali with my dad and my brother a long time ago at this resort that was all wealthy Russian. It was interesting. It was a very different vibe, different scene,
Yeah,
but
clearly.
yeah. Very cool. Let's see. And maybe just give me like you mentioned some property went for 3 million per night. Is that
No, no, sorry. It's like 3 million for 3 months.
okay?
Yeah. And
But
so it
what
was,
is that? I'm just curious. Like, what does the very upper end
but
properties look like, or what are we
you,
talking about here?
you can check on the website. It's called Chalet La Marmotière. It's in Verbier. It's something that is more than 1,000 square meters. I think it's up to 18 or 20 guests. You have like a poker game room, a bowling, a nightclub, a spa, a swimming pool. So at the end, it looks even more like a small hotel than just like a private property or secondary home. Mm.
That sounds really fun. Maybe for my
Yeah, definitely.
next milestone birthday, I'll get 20
Yeah.
of my best friends, and that sounds really fun. Just spending a week or a month or something with
Mm.
all that stuff. Um, Excellent, very cool. And you said mostly Europe, but also some in the Caribbean and I would assume like French islands, Saint Bart and
Yeah. So far in the Caribbean islands, to be honest, it's quite except for Samba that were operating over there for some years now, but the rest of the Caribbean is still pretty new. So we just opened also Turks and Caicos,
yeah,
but it's something that we just opened like a few months ago. So it's still pretty young to be able to give you any feedback, but Sambat is definitely a key destination for us.
how about
And
French
it's kind of the
Polynesia?
same.
Are you over in Tahiti and Moorea and stuff?
Nope, not yet.
Too far away.
Yeah, I guess at the end, we inspect all properties. We have teams on the ground in every destination. We welcome our guests. We handle any issue, and so yeah, we need to set up teams. And Tahiti is pretty far. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. How about anything in the US yet, or is that
no,
something on the radar?
about yeah, I found we looked. It's more like from an M&A perspective. We look at different candidates, but so far we didn't find any company that was really a crush.
So well, I want to get to the fundraising because that's really the focus of the show. But I actually wanted to talk about the M&A a bit too. That's pretty interesting. A couple questions on this. Like what types of businesses have you acquired? Were they just smaller competitors that had some inventory in certain markets, or tech, or what?
But it's more so. We are based in Paris, but we do operate in 30 destinations, maybe like 8 to 10 countries. And at one moment, even if we are, I think, quite good at opening a new market, even from Paris, um, local companies with like local people always do it better. So just being humble enough to know that if you come from the destinations, of course you will do the job like perfectly compared to what we do from Paris. So we can do okay, but they're going to do great. And it's really like the same kind of company. So renting luxury properties with services. Sometimes it could be like a leader in the country, like we just acquired the Greek villas that is the leader in Greece. And sometimes it could be something that is much smaller in terms of scope. For instance, we just did a strategic partnership with Insider Villas, focus on Mallorca, so the Spanish island.
Mm.
But it's every time it's kind of the same philosophy with just to identify the local champion, the local leader, and see how we can work together because the impact for the guests, for the conversion rate, for the business, for the profitability is huge. Just because they know the destinations, they know the owner. It's kind of the same culture also with local people discussing with a local on-site team. So it's really a question just of being local for us is a key factor of success and quality in our business. So
Yeah,
that's why
totally.
we're doing M&A.
Do you have when you've done six already, do you have kind of a formula or playbook for that? Like you come in and say, we'll pay X EBITDA or, X times cash flow or revenue, something like that, or is each one
Yeah,
custom?
no, exactly. There's a valuation model, and it's based on revenues and EBITDA with premium and discount items. For instance, like amazing brand, local teams, a complementary clientele database compared to LC. So, and it just adds what we can pay for. At the end, it's really, I think, we want to value the more we can the business we're acquiring, because it's a win-win situation. And so every item we found that we can value, we'll do it. And we're super transparent with the targets and the way we do modelize evaluation. Um, and after, but this is now, so this is like 6 companies later, was the first time we messed it up. Like it was a discussion that was going that was a bit blurry, going everywhere. Integration, I think we did everything. We did everything we shouldn't do for a successful integration. And now, of course, we have playbooks for M&A for integrations, but it's also we learn along the way, and with failures and success, and that's it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too. Like, do you have a playbook for integration? Sounds like you've developed one now. And do you typically keep on? I guess the second part to that question is, do you keep on the original founder, or do you try and buy them out? And then are you usually paying cash or stock? Like, I'm just trying to think of what this playbook
Yeah.
looks like. Yeah.
So I think so with for instance, our first acquisition, we did everything we could to keep the founder. But I think we didn't listen to her, because like she was saying a company because we wanted to do something else. So at the end, keeping or not keeping the founder is more what the founder wants. And we try to do everything we can to put the founder at ease at the beginning of the process, to tell him, her, um, whatever you want to do, same thing, just be transparent and honest, because if you want to leave, it's okay. Then there will be like a 6 month transition period. We'll find a new CEO, maybe a key people from the company. But if you want to stay, it's okay too. Just tell us, and then we'll build an incentive program for you also to stay, and maybe to have more value on the rest of the group. So it's really, I think, it's we have a playbook for M&A, but like the founder item, and if they stay or leave, it's really a case by case discussion. And what was the second part of the question?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
whether
stock
it's
or
stock or
cash.
cash. Yeah, just curious.
No, it's cash, and but we use stocks to re-incentivize the funding team and key people from the company we're acquiring, like for the group, with like a stock option program.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was curious also whether, back on the topic of whether to keep the founder or not, assuming you're doing more acquisitions, I was curious if it is a good thing or a bad thing to have a company made up of all these ex-founders, because founders are sometimes difficult people, strong-willed,
Well,
sometimes ego, sometimes crazy. I mean, sometimes let's just call it what it is. Founders can often
yeah,
be
yeah.
crazy people.
Well, yeah, no, but I guess yes, it's true. But to be honest, I think so far we've been quite lucky. And since today, what we tell them is like, for instance, when we acquired the company, like the leader in Switzerland, we told them like, you have an expertise in ski destinations that we don't have. You will do the business like far better than what we do. And so we want you to be lead for all ski businesses within the group. So at the end, and we even like push our ski business towards them. And so they're still like pretty much the boss in their scopes. You see what I mean? So we're not asking them, to step down, or we're not like putting them in a, I don't know if that was in a cupboard. No, it's a French way of saying like to put them aside. It's the other around. It's more like if we give them, if we give you, sorry, like more resources, more companies, if you can do M&A, if you have like more support, what would you do? And so at the end, it's pretty cool for them if they want to stay. They do have like resources and energy and people to do new things. And so no, it's not an issue. And I think like complicated founders doing like, well, to be honest, like the first thing during the first thing you test during M&A is the fit. So complicated founders, like you see it like rapidly,
Yeah.
and it's not a deal you want to make.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, last question on the acquisition stuff. I'm targeting you because we haven't had too many companies that have done acquisitions, so this is pretty interesting stuff. What advice would you give to another startup founder of a, maybe a totally different industry or whatever, but one that's interested in making lots of acquisitions? Or what advice would you give to yourself if you were starting over the acquisition process? Like anything?
But the first thing, to be honest, like the founder issue, what we just discussed, is really key. And I think just I would tell myself, like my 5 years ago self, that the value of the company, of course, is partly in the founder, but not completely. So identify the key people that you have in the company, and also be sure to listen what the founder wants, and if they want to stay or leave, because it has been, to be honest, it was like so complicated to have someone that you put on them golden handcuff, like that you make everything for them to stay, not to be able to go anywhere else. And so it creates like so much frustration, and the impact on the rest of the company is like super toxic. So I think it would be really like to be sure to listen to the founder, and the second thing, but it's more like an integration than a M&A advice, is as soon as like you validate the LOI and you start drafting the SPA, so the acquisition contract, do also, it's what we call like integration Bible. It's like how we will integrate you. Like, do we keep your brand? Do we keep everyone at the top management? Do we create like synergies in terms of revenues, in terms of costs? What is the timeline of for us, like listing new properties, all these kind of things. And it's super cool because you have like super legal, intense discussions, because it's like they're selling their company, so it's something big for them also, and that's normal. And just to have also this integration Bible, it's a good way to be sure that everyone is pretty aligned. And so after day one, you have also like a vision for the integration that you can share with the acquired team. And so because for them it's always a bit blurry, I think it's always like a source of stress, to be part of an acquisition and never know what's going to happen. So if you come with the plans, the timelines, the main projects, it's the best way also to be sure like to keep everyone and to make everyone commit to your project.
That's good. And so I think what I'm hearing you saying is you write this integration Bible with the founder of the acquired company. You're very open with it, sharing it with the employees, etc., right?
Yeah, exactly. And most of the time, it's not only the founding team. It can be also like, for instance, the CFO, the marketing director. If they are key people and they are in the loop, it's also a good way to have more ambassadors for integration once the deal is made.
That's interesting. But maybe this is more of a private equity model than what you're doing, but in many cases, a goal for the acquisition is to squeeze out costs and increase the profitability by, removing redundancies and people who maybe you don't need because you already have them. So I guess, is that part of the process too? Like, how can we?
For us, not really, because at the end, so we have like 4 regional offices, 2 from acquisitions, 2 from M&A, and 2 that we open organically. But our regional offices at the end, they are super ops. So it's really like the teams who are looking for properties, the teams who are selling the properties to the sales team, the concierge team, and the stay team. And when it gets super big, we'll have like a dedicated maybe HR person on site, a dedicated also finance person on site. But it's really, we do need these people because like one more time, we're not only buying the portfolio of properties. It's one of the main driver, let's be honest. But after, we need these people to operate, the properties and for the guests to be like welcome and to properties to be inspected. So we don't have this issue of redundancy.
Yeah.
Which is super cool because it's so easy to understand for them. There's like you don't create any panic effect with the acquisition. But it's more focused on and it's something that to be honest, we can still improve. It's more focused on revenue synergy. Because, for instance, when we bought the company in Verbier, so it's in Switzerland, but they have a monopoly situation in Verbier. Is most of the time, like for instance, an owner of a chalet in the Alps, they do have also a summer property. So it's more how we can, activate these synergies in terms of more properties, more clients. If they go skiing in Verbier, they might spend the summer in Saint-Tropez. So it's really more about like creating a virtuous circle of business than trying to squeeze costs or anything.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. All right. I know we have a hard stop in about 13 minutes, so I want to get into the fundraising. How much have you guys raised and over how many rounds?
So 18 million in 3 rounds. The first one was really focused on VC with Itsange, so French VC, and Partech, French VC, but I think a bit more at European scope or international scope even. The second one was with Red River West. Red River West is like a French VC, but they're also based in the US. And the strategy is really like how to invest in local champions in France and Europe and bring them in the US, since the US is still like pretty much like the biggest market in the world. So it's really like a key for them. And so the third round was led by Highland, but with a lot of other people, for instance, Swiss banks, Lombard and Pictet. Family offices like Famille C, which is like the family office from the Courtin and Clarins family. Nicolas Béraud, who is the CEO of Peclic. So BA, Fabrice Grindal, so like a super famous guy, especially in the marketplaces, businesses. So and it was 60 million. And Highland in the US Growth Fund, but this was like the European branch based in London.
Interesting. Okay. A lot of those names I've never heard of before, partly because I don't speak
Cool.
French.
Yes, I think it's yeah, but like most of them are pretty French. After Highland is really more, but it's US originally, like from the US, and I've been in Europe for I think 10 to 15 years now. They participated in the creation of so many unicorns. So I think out of all these names, this one might be the most famous one.
Yeah, I know Partech had an office in San Francisco years ago. I remember pitching them many years ago. I assume they're still here, but I don't know. Very interesting. How would you characterize the French startup / venture capital scene? Is it easy to break into? Is it very fragmented? Is it, maybe give the audience just a feel for it?
I guess it's pretty active from entrepreneur point of view. It means like there are so many people creating new companies, like and it's really something that is quite amazing. And it can be sometimes like basic business. It means like a business that already exists, but just doing it like better than the competition. And sometimes it's like crazy new ideas, and I love it. I guess something that is quite different, like in France compared to Anglo-Saxon market, is the government is pretty pushes really like the development of startups, and there are a lot of public initiatives to push the creation of startups and unicorns. And for instance, one of them is the French Tech. So it's a public organization that pushes the creation of French unicorns, and they have like two rankings, what it's called like Next 40, and the other one French Tech 120. And it's a super good way, like for instance, we're part of French Tech 120, and it's a super good way to have visibility, to have access to the government if you have any issue, if you need like, I don't know, also like an answer from the government, like from a tax perspective, if you need a work visa for someone, a candidate that you want to make them work in France, and to go faster, to have all this paperwork done. So it's really to be honest, I think the current government is really pro business, pro startup, and it's super useful, but it's also like great to have that. And during like the pandemic situation, they had like a furlough program that I think saves so many startups and so many businesses. Well, it's my opinion. I guess there are some other entrepreneurs that may disagree, but I really our government, I think, is really key in the creation of startups and the support they can bring to them. After, from a more financial perspective, I get there are a lot of VCs. There are fewer growth funds, so I think like the seed Series A part of the funding is quite covered. You have access. It's easy to discuss with people and to find money. But when it accelerates, there are less players. And for instance, when we did our Series C, but that was like growth, we discussed with few French players, but it was really more focused on the UK and the US. So I guess it's still something that we need to develop.
That's interesting. That almost feels like the opposite of other countries where there's later stage capital. And I guess I had a German company on not too long ago, and maybe this is just one data point, but later stage capital was pretty available, assuming you've de-risked the business. But the really early stage seed round stuff was kind of hard to find because there weren't that many angel investors. That might have been his experience, not broadly, broad market, but
yeah. But like for instance, in France, from a tax perspective, if you create it, there are so many incentives for you to reinvest in startup business. And so at the end, there are so many BAs that even have to find startups to fund, because otherwise they will have to pay like so much tax. So no, it's one more time, I guess, like the way the government for it's very pro startup.
Pro startup, good. Okay, about two more questions, I'll let you go. Any other advice you would have for maybe French entrepreneurs just starting? You mentioned French Tech 120. I mean, anything else you would point them to, or even just general advice for getting going in France?
But so it's pretty crowded at the end in Paris. So to create new companies in regions, in other cities, I think it's definitely something that is good to look at, because you do have access to other subsidies and support more from a regional perspective. But
let me ask you a question. Are there any other cities outside of Paris that are known as a startup hub or a good place to start a startup? Like, where would you go if you weren't in Paris?
But I guess, for instance, our second biggest office for Collectionist is in Marseille, and it's very active. But for instance, Nicolas Béraud, who is the CEO of Betclic and one of our business angel, and it's a billion GBV company. They moved their offices in Bordeaux. So I think there are so many options, to be honest. It's really more for the entrepreneurs and the CEOs like to be okay to move in other cities, but at the end, after whatever the city, it works fine. It's something that can work pretty well. I don't know. It's more like to be resilient. To be honest, it's not a question of the French market. Like the past few years have been tough, and after COVID, it's now like economic crisis, and before that, it was like a Russian war. So just like just be resilient, have a clear vision, and go for it. But it's very basic. I'm sorry, I don't have like any.
That's okay. No, that's fine. Some of the best advice is simple advice. All right, last question. Where is your favorite place to take holiday, or do you have a favorite property in your network?
So many destinations, but if I have to choose one, it would be Greece, because it's my when I was younger, we had like a summer house in Greece, and so I was going every summer, and I'm doing that now with my family, and it's something that I love. Maybe more from like the tips perspective, but it's more for fundraising. So like for the last fundraising, I got like interviews and meetings with maybe like 100 people, 100 different funds. So it's pretty huge, and it's super hard. It was one of your questions. Like it's super hard, to what I found super hard during the fundraising process is to go to the meeting with the same energy, same smile, same jokes, and to really give everything you have. And at the end, you're super tired also of the process. Like it's super hard to have the same energy at every meeting. And so maybe like an advice, especially for this kind of growth, almost like private equity, PE phase of funding, do a short list of your candidates. For each of them, really like understand what is their funding strategy and see if you match. If you match, and prepare yourself like for any job interview, but be the most specific you can on less candidates than like a generic pitch to 100 of people. And
to really
it's really,
focus your fundraising so you don't have to spend so much energy
it's
pitching.
definitely, yeah, same thing. If I could give myself an advice like a year ago, it would be that, like really to see the 10 candidates you want to sign, find the people you would feel that that would bring the more value to your company, and for each of them to prepare like the best job interview of your life, more than just have the best generic pitch, because at the end, they are also looking for, each of them is quite specific, and they are looking for something very special. So if you can answer directly the questions, makes sense. Everyone is saving time and works better.
I like that advice. I mean, it's one of these challenges. Like I always tell people, it's a numbers game. You have to talk to a lot of investors, but I also agree with you that the more you can narrow down your focus, really qualify them, that they're a good fit, that they do your type of deal. And then I like your addition of like really bringing your full energy to each of those pitches. That's good stuff. Excellent. So if people want to learn more, it's simply lescollectionist.com, right? And yes, you can go on and browse the beautiful properties and realize what the next level of luxury is. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. Keep up the good work. And
yeah,
I'm going to send your site to my wife. She's the decision maker in all our vacation planning, but even just spending a few minutes on it, it's incredible. So good job.
Thank you so much. I'll see you around then, and thanks again for having me.
Okay. Over now.
Bye. Cheers.